On behalf of the family of Ryan Blume, I want to welcome all of you here. I want to acknowledge there's a lot of us here in the room, and there are a lot watching online across the world. For those of you online, you're with us in spirit, and we're here together because we all loved Ryan Blume. And I just want to first of all express my deep gratitude that we are all here together today, and that we're all here to celebrate a life. On the live stream today, we have Ryan's grandfather in Rushville, Illinois. I just want to start off today. Obviously, we've been in the midst of some difficult times. And we're hoping that today we can all love one another well by wearing our masks. One of the cautions that I would have is as we're in the reception afterward, there's going to be a reception afterward. We want to celebrate Ryan's life, but let's make sure we put these on just to protect one another throughout this service. I'm just so grateful that you guys are all here. You know, it struck me and it hit Chloe as well as we were talking a few days ago that on this spot right here 15 years ago, Ryan and Chloe got married. The spot that I'm standing in. We have a lot of traditions like weddings and funerals. We were sitting at lunch, my family today, and my 11-year-old asked, because I don't know that he's really experienced a lot of funerals, but he asked, why are funerals sad? For an 11-year-old, that's a hard thing to process. But we're all processing today. And we come together in an event, and we don't always stop to ask, why do we come together? And I've heard these things said at funerals in the past. I'd like to repeat them now, just because we don't stop to ask why very often and ask the deep questions. And one of those questions is, why would we come together today, both in the room and online? There's a reason for it. And there's a few reasons for it. First of all, the very first reason is to remember Ryan. And as Chloe and I have spent time this last week in tears, and the family in tears, one word that keeps coming to mind is celebrate. And I'd like to, first of all, for all of us, just picture an umbrella over this whole event with the big word celebrate on it. Because that's what we want to do here today first, is we want to remember Ryan Blume, and we want to celebrate his life. We want to celebrate a life well lived. Cut short, but well lived. We want to do that together today. We want to remember, and we want to also together in that remembrance say goodbye to his earthly life right now together. That's one reason why we come together. Another reason we come together is to grieve. God gave us a gift in tears, in these human tears that fall when we grieve. And he gave us a gift of coming together. And I just want to exhort all of us to not ignore that, not try to bypass it. For some, this may be your first brush with death. This is a human process that we need to go through and give each other space for, to walk through together, to be available to one another for comfort. And then third, times like these, I think we come together, and these times exist to remind us of our own mortality. We don't often stop to ask those deep questions I referred to earlier about life. We've all been through a rough year. And there's weighty matters. And I think that a global pandemic started bringing some of these weighty matters to the forefront of our minds over the last year, and this is another and a very, very difficult season. And I think it's time for us to stop and think about some of those more weighty issues of life that we can so easily just brush by in the normal everyday circumstances. that we go through. That the fact is that we need to consider death. We need to consider that each one of us has mortality attached to us. And as much as we try to ignore it, we have to stop and we have to realize, no, this is something that's happening. And it will happen to each one of us. And I think for all of us, we sense a dissonance in that. And I can tell you why, as a pastor, a preacher of the gospel, the good news of God, when I look at his Bible, it says that we're not created to die. We're human beings created in the image of God. And we feel that dissonance because we're not supposed to die. God is eternal, and we are also designed to be that way, and so it doesn't feel right. And it actually, for all of us, it gives us evidence of something beyond death. And so on a day like this, we're reminded of our own mortality, that each of us needs to be restored in relationship to God the Father through the work of Jesus Christ. And then that brings us into the fourth thing, that there is hope. And Ryan believed this with all his heart, that it says in the Word of God and the Holy Scriptures that death is not the end, that there is a life after this, and it's a life that's more real than the life that we are experiencing now. And God is there. And He's big. And He's much bigger than we comprehend. And His ways are so much higher than what we can understand. And He's working all things together for good. And one day we'll have answers. Today we may not have all the answers that we would like to have to satisfy all of these questions. But we can look to Jesus, and there's an answer to the brokenness in this world in Him, and the fact that one day He's going to restore and renew all things back to rightness with Him for all of eternity. So I would like to pray, and then my co-pastor Aaron is going to share just some thoughts about Ryan's life. I'm going to share a little bit. We'll have the family share. We'll hear from Chloe. And let's just remember a life well lived, and let's celebrate Ryan Blume. Why don't you bow your heads and pray with me? God, we're all struggling today. I've been crying a lot this week, and I can't even begin to feel the same kind of pain that Ryan's family is feeling. We're grieving a loss. We're all grieving a loss, and we're all trying to find hope, and we don't have anywhere else to look for that hope but to you. And I just thank you for the promise, God, that you are near to us, Jesus, that you have promised to draw near to the brokenhearted, that you have promised to count every single tear that is shed. Remind us by the power of your Holy Spirit today that you are working all things together for good. That one day we'll have answers, but for now we just want to be honest with you. We want to go through this grief together, support one another. We want to say to you, God, it doesn't feel right now. And I just love, God, that you're so big that we can come to you and say that. I don't understand, God. It doesn't feel good today. But help us in the midst of that to celebrate and to find hope and to see eternity. And remember Ryan. Help us to keep our eyes on you. Jesus, you're the one who makes all things new. You're our hope. Center us on you today, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Before Aaron comes up, I would like to read Ryan's obituary. Ryan Prescott Blume, 41, of Loveland, Colorado, passed away unexpectedly at his home on March 23rd, 2021, of a heart arrhythmia. Ryan was born in Fort Collins, Colorado on October 12, 1979, to Pete and Debbie Blume. He attended Cash Laputer Elementary School and developed a lifelong passion for the game of baseball, starting with Fort Collins Youth Baseball T-ball. In 5th grade, the family, including little sister Brianna and baby brother Rory, moved to Grand Junction, Colorado, where Ryan quickly made friends and excelled in school. He and his best friend Casey spent endless hours teaching themselves fascinating skills and talents, such as riding unicycles, playing the harmonica, learning shorthand, juggling rubber chickens, and playing the guitar. At Grand Junction High School, Ryan was introduced to Knowledge Bowl, aka Academic Team. He was a member of the GJHS National Championship team in 1998, competing in the National Panasonic Academic Challenge in Florida and graduating with honors that June. Ryan attended Colorado State University, earning his BS degree in Computer Information Systems. He found a church home at The Rock and later at Summit View Church, where he made many lifelong friends. For 2 summers, he was a member of CSU's preview staff, an on-campus orientation program for incoming freshmen. And in a chance encounter in the 2001 preview season, and due to an accidental dorm room lockout, Ryan briefly met the love of his life, Chloe Peppard. The stars aligned, and weeks later, Chloe's dorm assignment for her freshman year named Ryan's sister Brianna as one of her roommates, and the rest, as they say, is history. Ryan and Chloe were married in Summit View Church on December 17, 2005. Ryan was employed as a web developer for CSU Housing and Dining Services from 2008 to the present. After hours, he enjoyed participating in a monthly poker tournament and the friendships he formed there. In recent years, he and Chloe spent most evenings online with treasured friends Tu and Aaron as part of Squatting Dogs Dog Squad and loving Fortnite community, where Blumer loved his role as a moderator. He had an uncanny ability to reach people in a deep and positive way. Ryan's most cherished role, though, was being dad to Noah and Toby. These 2 little boys, together with Chloe, filled his world to the brim with love. Ryan is survived by his wife, Chloe, sons Noah and Toby, parents Pete and Debbie Blume of Loveland, sister Brianna, and brother Rory, all of Denver. Also surviving are his in-laws, Kit and Debbie Peppard of Loveland, sister-in-law Claire Peppard, brother-in-law Clint Peppard. Other survivors include his paternal grandfather, Ari Blume of Rushville, Illinois, Uncle Will Blume of Fort Collins, aunts Hollis Blume of Chicago, Illinois, Helene Blume of Arlington, Washington, Uncle Scott Rupp of Twin Lakes, Wisconsin, Aunt Judith Rupp of Homer Glen, Illinois, and Aunt Tracy Kamen of Plainfield, Illinois. Cousins Gilbert Bottle Blume, Avery Pottle Blume, Tim Rupp, Lindsay Rupp, Natalie Rupp, Greg Rupp, and Dan Rupp, Caitlin Arnery, and Kelsey Arnery. Ryan is preceded in death by his maternal grandparents, Daniel and Shirley Rupp, and his paternal grandmother, Joyce Campbell Blume. The family wishes to express their sincere appreciation for the sympathy, comforting words, prayers, and all expressions of kindness and concern. And they say, may God continue to bless you. I'd like to welcome up Aaron Ritter.
Ryan Blume stole my dorm room door. We went to school together at CSU, and we lived on the same dorm floor. One day, I left my room and I went down the hall, I think, to talk to somebody else, and I naively left my door open. When I came back, somebody, later identified as Ryan Blume, had taken the door off the hinges and carried it upstairs and stashed it in another friend's room. I don't know how long I was without a dorm. I don't remember. It was at least a full day and a night that I had no door in my room. A couple days ago, Chloe reminded me of another story involving Ryan and theft. Although this time Ryan was the victim of the crime. Shortly after Ryan and Chloe were married, they lived in a little condo just west of campus. And after they moved in, Ryan hung up a hammock just in front of their condo, and he loved that hammock. He just loved to sit out there. Well, one day, the hammock disappeared, and somebody had taken the hammock. So Ryan, in typical Ryan fashion, he hung up a sign, and it said, "To whoever stole my hammock, your mother called, and she's ashamed of you." Shortly after that, the hammock was returned. Ryan was funny. He was clever. So many people that met him, that's one of the things that struck them about him is just his sharp wit. He was joy-filled, and he brought joy to others. And as we walk through this service here this afternoon, we will mourn and we will weep, but we will also laugh. And that was something that was actually going to be very important to Chloe and the rest of the family, as Travis mentioned earlier, that this truly would be a celebration. And we're going to hear stories about Ryan, and we will grieve, as we should. As Travis mentioned, as human beings, we must grieve together, and yet we will laugh as well. And we will celebrate the amazing man that Ryan was. After all, it wasn't just that he was funny. He was also very well admired. I think people looked up to him. Shortly after his death, after it became public, I had several people contact me, obviously shocked and saddened by the news. But I had a couple friends from college who I hadn't seen in years. They reached out to me, and they spoke about Ryan, and they spoke so fondly of him. But what stood out to me is that both of them used the word mentor or mentorship. And they saw in Ryan somebody to mimic, an example. And I don't even know if Ryan recognized that or if he would have thought of himself that way. But people did look up to him. And there was much to look up to. He was smart. He was talented. He was thoughtful. He was wise. He had a very soft conscience. He was committed to doing what was right. Actually had this very fierce integrity. But he also had this overall tenderness to him. He easily teared up because of other people's pain. He was earnest, he was protective, and he loved intensely, especially Chloe and Noah and Toby, as I think will become very apparent as we go on this afternoon. He had many of those qualities that were very admirable. And over the next hour or so, we'll see all of those things, and we're going to miss them. But we'll also celebrate that we had the chance to experience them.
I met Ryan in 1998 on a hike to Horsetooth Rock. And there weren't a lot of us. I had a lot of conversation with him that day, and we bonded over our mutual love of tasty meat. I've got a lot of memories over the years of Ryan. We were in Bible study small group together for years, Ryan and Chloe and my family and some friends. We vacationed together. The thing that keeps coming to my mind as I think about Ryan is just the twinkle in his eye right before he was about to just completely rip you to shreds with something hilarious. It's like the things that we miss about Ryan today, that's the one that keeps coming to mind for me. He was creative. He was brilliant. We used to go watch his improv comedy, and my favorite times in those moments were when he'd come out with his acoustic guitar and make up improv, random, dumb comedy songs that were absolutely brilliant on the spot on topics that he didn't know in advance. When Chloe came into the picture, it was just completely obvious that they were just completely designed for one another. It'd be pretty hard to have a Ryan-less Chloe. or a Chloe-less Ryan. You could just see it when they looked at each other. They'd be at our house. We had Sunday night dinners and lots of friends over, and Ryan and Chloe would be on the couch in the corner looking at each other. Ryan adored Chloe, and she adored him right back. He was so tender towards her. There was one point where somebody gave me a really expensive cut of beef tenderloin. There's a lot of it, and I was like, I got to share this with somebody, and Ryan is the one who came to mind. So we invited Ryan and Chloe over, and I made him some tasty meat. And I remember he bit down into the steak, and his eyes closed in just pure pleasure. It's like, this is why I invited Ryan Blume to have steak. But then the thing that stands out to me is there's a squeal from over here. So I'm looking at Ryan, and all of a sudden there's a squeal, just high-pitched, and it's Chloe, because she was looking at him too. And she was experiencing his pleasure right along with him. That's how these two, they just bonded and just knew and rejoiced in one another. And there's so many memories. There was one point where we taught here in church a very, very long sermon series on the book of Acts. And Ryan and I got to sit down and write a summary song that was kind of funny. And its centerpiece was about the Apostle Peter having a vision of all kinds of tasty meat. Ryan liked a lot of other things, not just that. That's just happened to be one of the things we bonded over. He was one of the most thoughtful people I think that I've ever met. And honestly, over this last year, as everybody was isolated during COVID and I didn't get to see Ryan in person, this was a hard year. And one of the most encouraging, inspirational people to me over this last year personally was Ryan Blume, because he would reach out intentionally. I was going back through a text conversation with him just a few weeks ago. And he reached out to let me know that he was praying for me. That's Ryan Blume. Hilarious, intelligent, deeply caring, and thoughtful. One of my most thoughtful and encouraging friends. I'm really going to miss him. I'd like to just invite family members up to share, and then we'll hear from Chloe in just a few minutes.
So anyway, thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
So you've heard what Ryan was like as an adult, and we're here to tell you what he was like growing up with. Ryan was the best big brother that anyone could ask for, even though we drove each other crazy as children. I followed him around copying everything he did. He loved that, really. From being a Cubs fan to a Rockies fan, to learning to juggle, to getting my own set of orthodontic headgear, I was determined to play baseball using Ryan's old glove. Ryan was right-handed. I'm not. It never paid to forget it was April Fool's Day around Ryan. From taping the kitchen sink sprayer handle down so it shot water at you when you turned it on, which he actually warned me about one of the years he did, and I still forgot. To replacing our dad's telephone handset with a peeled banana on the phone cradle by his bed. This joke became infamous when our dad got a phone call to a forest fire at 3 a.m. Ryan and I thought that teaching 1.5-year-old Rory that his name was actually George was a fantastic joke. This was especially funny for us when a grocery store clerk asked him what his name was, only to have Mom immediately correct him, and the clerk then consider maybe reporting it a kidnapping.
So I'm still not 100% clear on what my name is. One of my earliest memories of Ryan was roughhousing in the living room, and he was 10 years older than I am and 10 years bigger than I was, and I think what happened was he just wasn't paying attention to where I was, and he clocked me hard right in the mouth, and I just remember Ryan sitting there going, "Oh man, Roar, please don't tell Mom, please don't tell Mom." And I'm sitting there wiggling a tooth going, "No, I needed to lose this one anyway. That's good, thank you." Because that was Ryan. He was helpful even when he didn't intend to be. And then one thing that took off with our family was we had a cat named Dakota who only liked Bree and hated the rest of us. And Ryan at one point referred to Dakota as Stupid Kitty. It took off as an insult between us kids, and our mom decided that the best way to get us to stop calling each other names was we had to wear a name tag of whatever we called each other. And it became a game to see what name tag you had to wear, and we became Little Stupid Kitty and Medium Stupid Kitty and Big Stupid Kitty, and it just became a family moniker. And then Ryan was so funny. When I went to CSU, he got me into improv comedy, and I made so many friends through that. And before the group dissolved, he even got me involved in Clown Box, the comedy troupe. And we were always funnier when Ryan was there. And so, because of him, both of us went from being weird little kids with weird senses of humor to weird adults with weird senses of humor. And that continued even after college. We would always riff off each other as adults and just keep going with everybody long after the joke had stopped being funny. Rewording the lyrics to Hamilton in group chats to the annoyance of everybody else reading. And as Travis said, 15 years ago, when Ryan and Chloe were married here at Summit View, I almost passed out and hit the flagstones right here.
So Ryan was the kind of big brother that was protective without being overbearing. He vastly preferred humor to criticism, especially sarcasm, and we strove to be better people because of his example. He chose a wonderful woman. I might be a little biased because she was my roommate and my friend before becoming my sister-in-law. He gave us the gift of being aunt and uncle to two wonderful, hilarious little boys. Thank you for all the laughter, Ryan.
Miss you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to read something on behalf of Ryan's parents, Pete and Debbie. On December 17th, 2005, we lit a candle and opened a story. Today we lit a candle once again, and the story continues. Today is the most difficult day in our family's life as we gather to say farewell to our son. To those of you who knew Ryan, you are already aware of the kind of person he was, and these words are already in your memory. To those who are not as fortunate, these words will give you a sense of the type of man he was and as an ideal for which to strive. Ryan was deeply loved by his family and friends, and it is testament to him how many of you are here today to honor him. Not only was he a loving son, and brother and a devoted husband and father. He was a kind and giving friend, someone who was always a pleasure to be around. Again and again over the past few days, we've heard the words respect, compassionate, and especially kind used to describe him. Our hearts have been warmed by the comments we've read as we better understand all the lives he touched and the impressions he left. Our wish is that you will be there for Chloe, Noah, and Toby, and will help keep Ryan's memory alive and strong for them. Please say his name and tell his stories. Our family wishes to express our heartfelt thanks to all those who have reached out to us with support, compassion, and love throughout this incredibly difficult week. How quickly things change. We know in our hearts that he would not want us to go on grieving for too long. Rather, Ryan would want us to all remember his smile, his laugh, his wit, and the depth of his love for his family. Goodbye, son. You were a gift and you will live in our hearts forever.
Well, we all know Ryan was a giver, and I'm going to tell you about something else he gave. When you spoke to Ryan face to face, you couldn't help but notice his beautiful hazel eyes. He had excellent vision, and now his eyes will bless 2 individuals with the gift of sight. As Ryan's corneas have been donated to cure their blindness, he also donated tissue, bone, and skin grafts, and the family was told that his tissues were excellent. All told, it is expected that his gifts will make a significant difference in the lives of 40 to 50 people. We take great comfort in knowing that his living gifts will help so many, and we know that Ryan would want you to consider registering to be an organ and tissue donor as well.
Breathing. Thank you. Just keep breathing. I am going to speak because it is my honor and privilege, and I have to. And I know you're all going to be gracious because it may not go well. And that's okay, because what are you going to do about it? So many thoughts. How do you, 15 years married, 20 years, knowing my best friend, the best man I've ever known. I kept trying to think, I want to let people know. I tried to write notes on my phone, and towards the end, they just sort of evolved into, I don't know what I was talking about. But I'm going to try. The first thing I wanted to do, though, was think, I don't even know if they'll ever see this, but thank paramedics. In an instant, I knew that the hopes and dreams I'd always carried, we're gone. But I tried so hard, and they were there so fast. And they tried so hard. and they loved us. They didn't even know me, but they loved me and all of that. And what a hard job. So if you know someone or if you are a paramedic, what you do matters. One of the paramedics who'd been working with Ryan, afterward, he came up and he said, "I'm so sorry." And he took his mask off and he said, "I hope that I can find love in this life that it's obvious that you two had." So thank you for being there when my world was ending. And I just want to thank everybody for coming, and everybody who sent me messages, and everybody who's watching. It's so fitting, because his presence online, that's a gift, you know. It's so easy to misinterpret text, you know, when all you have is text with someone back and forth. To have touched lives the way that Ryan did, it's fitting to me that people all over the world are watching. I want to tell you, honestly, a lot of people said it better than I was going to, but I wanted to tell you our love story. I went to preview orientation for CSU, and I only lived 30 minutes away, and so I didn't need to stay in the dorm, but it's a 2-day program, and I wanted to be a part of things. And so I went ahead and signed up to stay in a room. Something happened with the housing keys, and they thought that the key they gave me had not been returned by the previous week's session or whatever. So they changed the locks on the dorm room that had my stuff in it. I come back at 11:30 at night, because that's when the first day program ended. I can't get in the room. And I didn't have a roommate. What's the point of staying if you don't have, that was the point. And this rather handsome man, he was the orientation leader that was in charge of that dorm floor, and he walked out and he saw me and my mom just standing there out in front of the door going, "What do we do?" Because there's no one to call. All the offices were closed. And so he went and he broke into he broke into the housing office. And he got the new key so I can get my stuff and stay with my friend. And I just thought he was a real nice guy. But I'd never see him again. And then I found out that, so I lived on campus. So there was too many students, so they were putting 4 people in study rooms as overflow, and so they were quads. And one of my roommates was supposed to be a girl that I went to high school with. We didn't plan that, but that's what it was supposed to be. And all of a sudden, I got a message that said that she was no longer going to be my roommate. Someone named Blume was going to be, and that was his sister. And so throughout that year, he would come by, and I just always assumed it was to see Brianna, but he said secretly it was also to see me. And I just thought the world of him. It's funny because his love for God was so apparent, and he was such a, everybody else has said it too, and he's so gentle and so wise. And so handsome, but I thought, here's the thing, he was just so knowledgeable, he was so wicked smart. He loved God so much, and he was so wise, and I just had it in my mind that he wasn't interested in love. He was, like Paul or something, where he's just he doesn't need that, he's above it. And so I would always, my little crush, I would always say that he was the type of man that I would want to marry. And I remember we had because I worked for preview orientation too, we had a retreat once. And part of retreats, you're supposed to bond, and so we all had these bonding moments, and just listening to him, I just kept falling. Anyway, afterwards, I thought, I'm gonna encourage him. I walked up to him and I said, I just want you to know you're the type of man I want to marry. Let's just say my self-awareness was not great. I didn't know he had a crush on me too, but he just kind of, thank you. And I would tell everybody that. Later on, when we'd be working, see, I was very direct. But he was going to be graduating soon, and so he kind of had thought he was interested in me, but he kind of thought maybe I might be a distraction, like maybe that's not something to start right now, that kind of a thing. And so he would alternately steal my keys as a flirt, and then when we'd be in a group talking, like someone's here, I'm right here, and someone else is here. He'd be talking to this person, and he would look over my head to talk to the next person. I'm like, what are you doing? Anyway, we worked it out. So it worked out okay. And I started going to the same church as him. And my early memories are just filled with the visions of him with his head thrown back, praising God. And there's one of my first memories of him was we both lived in Newsom. And I was walking through, there's a glass corridor that connects the main building to the dorms. And I remember walking through the glass, I was by myself, nobody was around. And I was walking through the glass walkway, and Ryan was outside sitting on a picnic bench, and he had his guitar, and he was just singing. And it's still the same God that captivated him. I lost my spot. Basically, we became friends, and I fell for him when he didn't know I was watching him. You know what I mean? You could tell what kind of a person they are when they don't know they're being, they're not trying to impress you. And I fell for him, and no one else was surprised. One of my friends, Karen, said it so obviously, she can't imagine a Ryan-less Chloe or a Chloe-less Ryan, and honestly, I can't either. I still can't. Ryan Blume and Noah Blume and Toby Blume have been the greatest treasures and gifts I've been given in this world. He was my soulmate. He was my best friend. He's the only person I never got tired of. And I'm not exaggerating. We both would say that. I'm like, I don't get tired of you. And he said the same thing. I'm like, is that weird? But it's just what we were. Favorite things about him, we've already talked about a bunch. His gentleness, his love for God, like I said, that's what drew me to him. I could always trust him to make decisions through the lens of God's love and his word. And when he messed up, because he was human, I could always trust him to repent humbly. And he was my safe place. He was the person. He got angry, but he never raised his voice at me. We were married for 15 years, and I'm not always easy to handle. I happen to be emotional. I know you're all shocked. But he'd never reprimand me. He'd never raise his voice at me. He would never shame me. And I struggle, as so many people do. I have insecurities. I analyze everything that I say to it. Like, we'll have a conversation. I go home, I analyze it. Did I say something stupid? Did I offend them? Or like, I never, ever had to do that with him. He never shamed me. And I think when I would mess up, if I was making a bad choice, he'd give me advice. But if I messed up, I knew I could come to him and be like, babe, I messed up. And he's like, and I'm like, do you forgive me? He's like, of course. That was at the beginning of our marriage. I stopped asking after a while because it was a given. He's like, yes. He gave me the space to not be defensive. He just was gifted in ways I wasn't. And it was just such a compliment. He calmed me down. He made me wiser. And I pushed him to do more. Because he told me, he's like, I would be happy sitting in front of a computer day after day and just be pretty fine. And I'm like, no, we have to travel. And he said, we loved traveling together. We did it really well, really efficient. We were very proud of the fact that we did 6 parks in 4 days on our honeymoon, because we went to Disney World and all those others. And it sounds horrible and exhausting to everyone else, but we were like, we have got this. He loved that we had the system figured out, and I just loved that we were doing everything together. I am so thankful that I had babies with him, because I knew that they had him to watch. And I knew that they would have the best example of what a good man is and what a good father should be. His favorite thing was telling me, oh, Chloe, you are so perfect for me. And I would say that same thing back to him, but he would say it all the time. And my boys will tell you, all the time, random things, the way I'd drink water for something, he would go, oh, I love you. And I'm like, why? I didn't do anything special. He'd be like, I just do. And so I loved to delight him. And I did stupid little things and made stupid little looks and sounds and jokes and songs because it delighted him. My boys, he would love to be like, boys, do you know how much I love your mama? They're like, yes. And Noah would always say, please don't start kissing again. He loved a big God, and that enabled him to love us big. And babies, Noah and Toby. I see so much of your daddy in you. No. You both have tender hearts as well, yeah. I'm probably gone way over my time anyway, but we all know about his love for other people. I've had messages from around the world of people telling me they never met him, but that he changed their life, or that had an impact on them, that he was a safe place for more people than just me. His humor, we've all talked about that. If you are here, you know Ryan's humor. It was special sometimes. But that's because it was above, I think, where the rest of us always would get it. He would always make these tweets, and the twinkle in his eye when he knew he was being clever. The problem was that I didn't get them. And he'd show me one of his tweets or whatever, and I'm like, honey, I don't understand. And he'd say, it's okay, trust me, it's hilarious. One of the last things. Ryan, I love you so much. Oh, one of the last things. He's been frustrated with Rockies baseball. The analytics team. I won't go into all of it. We can talk at the reception if you want more. Let's just say he is frustrated, as are all the other Rockies fans that have just loved the Rockies with their hearts, and just they're angry, they're not pleased. So he was part of this Twitter contest of roasting the Rockies. And he created this thing that said Department of Analytics and Laundry. I don't hear many of you laughing. You don't get it either. Apparently, it is brilliant. And my brother Clint, or Ryan's family can explain it to you, but it was so well received that one of his friends who has a t-shirt company was like, he was talking to Ryan, he's like, it's perfect, can I please have it to put on shirts? And Ryan was like, yeah, for the low price of an XL, do it. And so those shirts have been made. And I love the fact that one of the last things he did was to troll Rockies Analytics, Rockies management. And that there's going to be people that I'll never meet walking around with his shirt on. I was just proud to be his wife. If people knew Ryan, I wanted them to know. I wanted them to know I was connected to him. Like, he's cool. I'm sorry I am taking a while. One more story, and then I have but there's just so many I gotta pick. I just gotta go. My husband wasn't perfect. He was a man who made mistakes like anyone. When we celebrate people, sometimes it can almost make them seem like gods because we're focusing on the good. There's just so much good about him. He wasn't a god, but he was a man whose heart loved God so much. Everything he did screamed of God's love to the rest of us. And I just want to scream all of the ways that he blessed my life and others' lives. He was rare. He was funny and witty. He was scary smart and talented. With random things. He could tie balloon animals and ride unicycles, and it was like he'd pull these things out at parties and stuff. And it just, you didn't expect him to know how to do these. He knew how to do like everything. But he was
incredibly wise, wicked creative, but he was also humble. And the thing is that when he had authority, he never used it to lord over others. He was so strong, but he used his strength only to protect and bless. Anyone who knows us knows I was spoiled. How could you not be? How could you not be? Because it was his mission to spoil me. He did so many things for me, and it's not because he didn't think I could do it, but because he wanted to love me by serving me. And it was his way of letting me know that I was his priority. Our kids were his priority. He never, ever, I'm not exaggerating, he never made me feel stupid or weak. And in fact, he was the one that made me feel like I could do anything and he'd support me. To have him tell me that he was proud of me, that I was doing a good job. I thought so highly of him that it made me feel like I was walking on air. It made me feel like $1 million. So strong. He loved me and my kids unconditionally. And because of that, he was a picture of God's love to me on this earth. His generosity, he would never stop. He would never fail to help someone who needed help. There were stories of him stopping alongside the highway because he needed to help some random person God kept bringing into his life. Or else other women we met that had the same pregnancy conditions I had, because he kept me alive, literally, with our 2 babies. But whenever we heard of other women, he just was like, tell their husbands I'm here if they need to talk. Yeah, take money, do the meals. Let's help them. His devotion just never swayed. Grief is so strong, you guys. Guys, it's so strong. I can't breathe sometimes. I can hardly think. I didn't sleep last night because I was so worried that I wouldn't get to tell you all what I wanted to tell you about Ryan. And I wanted to say what needed to be said and not miss a word. And they say grief is love enduring after loss. So this makes sense. Because I loved him more than my own life. It's like being ripped in half and told you have to keep walking around with your guts hanging out. How does someone survive this kind of loss? My little sister, she just recently told me that in Arabic, shway shway, and it means little by little. So it's little by little. I used to be afraid of losing him because I was too happy. I was just too happy. And when you're that happy, you start to worry someone's going to take it away from you. And I knew that he would never stray, so I knew it would have to be death. And I told him, I said, I just feel like I'm going to lose you someday. I feel like I just feel in my heart that I'm not going to get to keep you as long as I want. And I told him, and I said it, you probably think I'm paranoid. And he told me, he said, well, you don't know the future. But the other thing he told me was that, honey, it's a little arrogant. Because God has a plan for my life apart from yours, thank you very much. But that's what keeps running through my head right now, guys. Because that's the thing. God had a plan for Ryan's life, and he lived it well. He lived it well. I've learned so much from him. I've learned so much from him. And the thing is that God also has a plan for my life apart from his. And he has a plan for our boys' lives apart from his too. He does. I'm going to sing a song, and it might seem strange to all of you. Partly because we know it's probably not going to go well. But see, that's okay. I want to explain just a little bit, because a large part of why I'm doing this is between me and Ryan. But singing has been a huge part of our relationship since the very first time I saw him singing with his guitar, throwing his head back and just loving Jesus. But also we used to make up silly songs all the time about everything. We have a diaper changing song. We just sang to each other. We changed words for each other. We would take just random songs and switch the lyrics so that we were singing to each other. And I wanted to sing a love song, but you guys don't get to hear that. That's between him and me. But I am still going to sing a love song. And the reason I'm going to sing what I sing is because Ryan always protected me. I always felt safe. And I always felt cared for. And it was his highest purpose and joy to care for me and love me and our children. And I got used to that. But he was a human man. And he didn't have control over life and death because he never would have left. He never would have left me and our babies. I know. I'm so thankful that he went fast and didn't have to worry. He just opened his eyes and saw Jesus and knew everything would eventually be okay. And so, this love song that I'm singing is because I want him to know I'm going to be okay eventually, and that I understand who my first love is. You just got to give me a minute. Shway, shway. This is to honor my husband. And this is also because, while singing was something between the two of us, this is also something that is uniquely mine. And I can honor him and God with it. And it's not a performance, so if anybody knows it and wants to sing, if you need this too, go for it. But I have to remind myself and my children that there's still someone protecting us, that we are still unconditionally loved. And that God is big and passionate. He's a mountain climbing, wall breaking God. So yeah. Where do I go? I'm going to hold this because it's a security blanket. singing over me. You've been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You've been so, so good to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights when I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Thank you so much, Chloe, for that song and for all you shared about Ryan. Travis and I are going to just share a few more words here. And then we're going to watch a slideshow of Ryan's life and then close in song. But I hope that after all that was just shared, you have been able to see what a bright and shining light Ryan's life was. But sometimes that makes it even harder when you see how amazing he was, because we lost a man who made the world a lot better. And there's this huge gaping hole left in our lives, and there's even this sense of unfairness because he died young. And we can ask, well, what do we do with those feelings? Well, I think if Ryan had something to say to us here, he would have some words of comfort. And he would have some words of comfort because he had a hope beyond this life. As I said earlier, I went to college with Ryan. And while in college, I got to see Ryan come to a deep and powerful and very genuine faith. And that faith was not superficial or driven by naivety or wishful thinking. As we've all shared, Ryan was a very, very intelligent man. It's actually what stood out to a lot of people as they got to know him. So this guy's smart. And he was a deep thinker. He was rational. He was well-grounded. And he even had an appropriate measure of skepticism. And yet he came to believe that God was real. And not only was God real, but he was deeply personal. And God offered him more than just this life. And Ryan came to a belief in that God because he answered all the questions that he had been wrestling with. And I saw him wrestle through some of those questions. Questions about meaning and beauty and rationale and justice and love. All of the things that seem to make up the whole substance of the world. Things that were most important in this world. And as he wrestled through questions about those things, he came to believe that those things were not just mere accidents or illusions, but they were real. And they had a source. And there was someone underneath all of those things. And he came to the conclusion that God was there, he was real, and he was personal, and so much so that he even pursued. And he pursued each one of us. And I think we just got to hear from Chloe a picture of that. How Ryan pursued Chloe and how Ryan delighted in Chloe. It's just a shadow of who God is and what he does towards each one of us. And Ryan saw that God was so pursuant that he even left heaven and he came into this world as a man, Jesus Christ, in order to live with us, in order to show us what he was like, and then eventually to die for us, to pay a penalty that we all owed, that our sin demanded. And to take that punishment that we all deserved. However, as we're celebrating this time of year around Easter, Jesus did not stay dead, but he conquered death in order to pave the way for all of us into everlasting life, only requiring that we receive that offering by entrusting ourselves to him. And Ryan came to a confident belief in that truth. And he believed that when his own heart stopped beating, he would enter into real life. I believe that Ryan's faith was the most defining quality in his life. Everything else flowed out of that. So much of the goodness and the kindness and the self-sacrifice that we experienced from Ryan was driven by this understanding that he had something more in the next life. He didn't need to squeeze everything out of this life for himself. No, he had it all waiting. That's why he could pour himself out for others in the here and now. I think that's what motivated him. And he longed for others to discover what he had. If Ryan were here today, I think he would echo the words of 2 Corinthians 5:20 that say, I urge you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. Now, although it can seem trite and cliche to speak of Ryan being in a better place, that's what we always say at funerals. He's in a better place. Well, the reality is that it's true. That he is in a better place. And today, despite our grief, we can truly celebrate. Because in confidence, we can trust that God has experienced, or that Ryan is experiencing life with God that he was always made to experience. Now, still, there are realities for the rest of us. And there are certainly realities for Chloe and the boys. But I think there's still hope for them, even in the here and now. And Travis is going to share a little bit about that.
Like Aaron said, there are realities for the rest of us, especially for Ryan's family. And I just wanted to share something specifically for Chloe and for Noah and for Toby. Really, it's for all of us because it's related to the heart of God for us. The heart of God, this God that Ryan knew so intimately. This God is relational. And he's a God who is not just a theoretical idea or a concept or an impersonal force. He's a person with a character. And so when we talk about the heart of God, we're talking about his priorities. We're talking about what is it that pleases him? What are the ways that he's naturally inclined? What is his character like? Who is God? So we're talking about the things that he is passionate about, the things that he loves. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the heart of God. And Chloe, you're walking down a path. And as you continue down this path, of course, there's an understanding of that heart of God, I think, that's going to have to keep you, it's going to have to be with you to keep you going. And it's going to have to be fresh. It's going to have to be different now. And I just wanted to describe just a part of God's heart in this situation that I think applies. And it's in a book of the Bible that we don't really usually return to or just turn to in general. It's the book of Deuteronomy. It's kind of known as the book that's boring. It's the book with all the rules. All the ceremonies. It's dry. Instructions for making a tabernacle and how to worship. And it's a slog to get through. But right in the middle of it, over and over and over and over again, we see the heart of God. I'm not going to read all of them because we are kind of running out of time here. But Deuteronomy 10, where God is talking to his people, he says, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you? But to fear the Lord your God, walk in his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, to keep the commandments, the statutes of the Lord, which I'm commanding today for your good. That's what God requires of his people. And he says, behold, to the Lord your God belong heaven and the heavens of heavens and the earth with all that is in it. Everything belongs to God. And here's the part. He says, he executes justice for the fatherless and the widow and loves the sojourner, giving him food and clothing. Sojourner, another interpretation of that word would be the immigrant or the refugee, the foreigner, the one who is other. God's heart is for those who are down. Deuteronomy 14, it says, every 3 years you should bring out the tithe of your produce, lay it up within your towns to the Levite because he has no portion or inheritance with you, and the sojourner, the fatherless, and widow who are within your towns, they should come and eat and be filled, that the Lord your God may bless you in the work of your hands that you do. The fatherless, the widow, the sojourner, having their needs met is near and dear to the heart of God. There's another passage in Deuteronomy that talks about don't harvest all of the grain in your field. Leave some for the widows and the fatherless because God cares. God cares. In Deuteronomy 27, toward the end of the book, it says, cursed be anyone who perverts the justice due the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. And all the people shall say amen. They agree. God's heart is for the widow and the fatherless. And so in the middle of all of these rules, the ancient Israelites are hearing, we see this ongoing care for the fatherless and the widow and the refugee. And we see it all through the Bible, not just in this book. One of the passages was in Psalm 68:5. It says, God is fatherless. He's the father of the fatherless and protector of widows. Is God in his holy habitation? You see examples throughout the Bible of God specifically and intentionally ministering to widows through the prophet Elijah, through Jesus himself. And then near the end of the Bible, we have this statement that describes religion, true religion, pure religion, religion that matters, something to actually do tangibly. And it's in James 1, chapter 1, verse 27. It says, religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. God cares. And Chloe, I know it's probably very easy to feel very alone right now, and there's going to be times where we fail you. But understand from the beginning to the end, the Bible describes a God whose heart is inclined specifically straight towards you, to support you, and to love you and care for you. But the rest of us, there's a role that we have to play in this because we have to be God's tangible hands and feet to support this wonderful family. There's a scene in the book of Matthew where at the end of time, Jesus is rewarding people for what they did. He says, come receive your reward at the end of time. He says, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you welcomed me. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. And the people responded back to the king, to Jesus, and they said, wait, when did we do those things for you? We don't remember doing any of that. What are you talking about? And Jesus answers in Matthew 25, verse 40. He says, I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you did it also to me. And so this is our time to serve God by serving Chloe and Noah and Toby. To tangibly be God's hands as God inhabits each one of us. To tangibly be moved to help. To be God's listening ear, to be God's shoulder to cry on, to mourn with, to be God's support, his embracing arms for Chloe and her family. And I just want to practically say that right now, Chloe's surrounded immediately by family. Her needs are being met right now, but there's going to be long-term needs. There's going to be long-term care that's necessary. Ryan was the sole breadwinner for the house. Their cars don't work very well right now. Chloe's got to mourn and take care of little boys at the same time. And she's got an amazing supportive family. But church, this is our time to be the church. This is our time to give that drink of water that in the end, Jesus is going to go, thank you for doing that for me. We do it for Chloe. And so we have some tangible, practical things. One of those things is if you're on the live stream, there's going to be a link there. You can go to someofyou.com/Blumes. You can donate money. And that's going to help. That's going to help a lot. If you go to that link, I just want to talk just practically for a second, because we do have to talk about logistics sometimes. There's a drop-down link, because if you just give there, it's just going to go into the church's general fund. We don't want that. We want it to go into the Widows and Orphans Fund. We've specifically set up for cases like this, situations like this, where we can give and help in time of need. I just wanted to say that is actually a tax-deductible contribution because it does go to the church. As pastors, we do have discretion on where that goes. We've decided that right now that's going to go to help Chloe. And so when you give, it's going to help her. We also have a food calendar for care. And there's a reality with this is that for all of us, we're going to go home. And we're going to resume life. But Chloe's going to go home. And she's a Ryanless Chloe, as she described. And church, in a year, we've got to be there. In 2 years, we've got to be there. That's my challenge for us as your pastor. For friends, maybe who don't attend this church, we've still got to be there. Family, you guys are loving her so well. I have been so grateful and so impressed by all of you in this last week. So if you're interested and you want to give, again, it's summitview.com/blooms. And I think what we'll do is we'll maybe make a landing page that also has a meal calendar on it. And we'll have more tangible ways to support in the weeks and even years to come. But that would be my challenge for all of us. Let's express God's heart towards Chloe and her family. Fatherless, widow, God loves you so much. Like you told me yesterday, he's so big. He's so big. We're going to take some moments here and we're going to watch a slideshow of Ryan's life. Thank you guys for being here. And, I know this is a kind of a long service, but I just really want to celebrate Ryan well. There's just some great pictures that the family has assembled and Chloe has assembled. For those of you on the live stream, unfortunately, here's another practical reality. We can't play the music on the live stream because of copyright. It'll actually stop the video thanks to YouTube and their issues. So if you're watching at home or on your phone, whatever, and the music stops, the sound stops, your device isn't broken. So don't turn it off. But the images will be there, and then we're going to come back up. And actually, I think Chloe's up for it to sing a couple more songs, right? So we'll see. If not, I'll just go ahead and sing them, and we'll be able to sing together because I think Ryan would have wanted that as well. But let's just take some time and let's just watch Ryan's life.
fast. Apparently, we were nerds, and we played video games together every night with dear friends. And his favorite skin was that superhero chicken. And the other one was one I really loved. And he made that for me one day, and he was so proud of it. So I just had wanted you all to see it.
First Corinthians 4:12. Sorry, 1 Thessalonians 4:12. The Apostle Paul is talking about death. He says, "But we do not grieve as others grieve who have no hope, because we believe Jesus Christ died and rose again. And like Jesus rose, so we will rise. But there is a day coming where all of this, everything will be reconciled, restored, sorrows will be no more, untrue things we won't have to deal with. God's going to restore it all. He just asks that we believe." Do all for you. Nothing compares to life I have in you. Nothing of this world satisfies. So I want to let go. I want to let you know all that I have to give is yours. Here I am. Let's go to the fire. I will surrender to your hand. To this place, Lord, I have come ready for your touch. If you want to sing along. It's all for you. It's all for you. I'm letting go. I'm letting go. It's all for you. It's all for you. I'm letting go. I'm letting go. All right, what is it in me that hangs on for so long? What is it in me that hangs on for so long? Why do I fight the tears that come? I work so hard to keep in control when all that I want is to let go. Here I am, let's go to the fire. I will surrender to your hand, to this place. Lord, I have come ready for your touch. It's all for you. It's all for you. I'm letting go. I'm letting go. It's all for you. It's all for you. I'm letting go. I'm letting go. It's all for you. It's all for you. I'm letting go. I'm letting go. It's all for you. It's all for you. I'm letting go. I'm letting go. And I am ready for your life. And I am ready for you now. Lord, I am ready for your life. And I am ready for you now. Oh,
I did. Let's bring up that Elise. I'll take this life. That's right. We got to sing this part.
Like that was the main point for the song. This life, I lay it down. I'm letting go. I'm letting go. My hopes and dreams here at your feet. I'm letting go. I'm letting go.
Amen.
And just before I don't get a chance to, thank you, everybody. People who flew in, people who drove cross country, everyone who's been so. You're showing me how big God is. I made him too small before. He's very big. And this would make Ryan really happy. So thank you.
Whatever I face, whatever the fear, whatever the cost, you always draw near. Whatever the pain, whatever may come, whatever may fail, your love overcomes. Your love overcomes. I will call upon you. Whatever I face, you are with me. I will fall on my knees. For every heartbreak, you will hold me. You will hold me. Whatever I face. Whatever I face, whatever the fear, whatever the cost, you always draw near. Whatever the pain, whatever may come, whatever may fail, your love overcomes. Your love overcomes. I will call upon you. Whatever I face, you are with me. I will fall on my knees. For every heartbreak, you will hold me. You will hold me. You will hold me. Every wall will break, all the darkness shake, all the joy will be renewed. Every knee. So every knee let's bow, raise a victory shout, for the King who makes things new. Every mountain move, every lie be loose, for your banner we're lifting high. For the death nor height nor any life could ever cast your love aside. Every wall will break, all the darkness shake, all the joy will be renewed. So every knee let's bow, raise a victory shout, for the King will make things new. I will call on you. Whatever I face, you are with me.
I will call.
I will fall, I will call upon you. Whatever I face, you are with me. I will fall on my knees. For every heartbreak, you will hold me. You will hold me. Whatever I face, whatever may come, whatever the cost, you always draw near. Whatever with pain, whatever may come, whatever may fail, your love overcomes. Whatever may fail, your love overcomes. You will hold me.
I will call upon you for every heartbreak.
You will hold me.
I will fall on my knees.
Every heartbreak, you will hold me. You will hold me. You will hold me.
Ryan, thank you for giving me your heart and our life.
And on behalf of Chloe and all the rest of the family, I do want to thank you for being here. That was very, very important for you to be with them in this. We do have a reception, though, right as we finish here. We're going to dismiss in just a moment, and so we'll have a reception really in the lobby and in the gym there. And so we're going to dismiss the family first, and then all of the rest of you are just welcome to leave as you please. But join us in the gym and in the lobby. There's going to be a slideshow, an extended slideshow of Ryan's life playing in both places. Also, in a few minutes, we're going to open up a mic in the gym just for anybody that would like to share further about Ryan, whether that's funny anecdotes or just something meaningful that impacted you from his life. And I really do believe that Chloe and the rest of the family would love to hear those stories. That would mean a lot to them. And so stick around with us. There's going to be cookies and coffee in the gym and the lobby. One more thing. There's actually a phone number at the bottom of your bulletin. That is just if you would like to text any kinds of encouragements or stories or just something that you'd like to share with the family, they will all get that. They just encourage you to leave your name as well so they know who it's from. But if you just want to pass on a little something, you can do it via that number. All right, well, I think that's all we have for the service this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and have the family exit. They'll be ushered out, and then the rest of you can join us for the reception. Thanks again.